Everybody, Mike Williams upstairs to the right music. Recently I sold my Dan Electro guitar. Now I bought this guitar because I was interested in seeing if it had a tone that I could use in my recordings, and I did actually use it on a project I'm working on right now, but essentially it wasn't a tone that I thought that would have legs in my studio, so I let it go to a gentleman. So interestingly enough, when I met up with a guy who ended up buying it from me, he asked me about other guitars that I had, and I said, well, I have a few, and I asked him, you know, just general casual conversation, how many do you have? And he said, well, I've got 14. This one will make number 15, and I have to hide it from my wife. Now, I found that to be actually a thought-provoking statement on his behalf. That here's this guy who's kind of covertly meeting me at a Starbucks to do a deal on a guitar, and he somehow has to sneak it home and keep it away from the eyes of his spouse. I don't know how he plans on doing that unless he lives in Wayne Manor. He's got like a man cave that his wife is not allowed to go into. And in any case, I just found that to be a very thought-provoking kind of statement, and it got me to thinking about my recent acquisition of guitars. As you know, for years and years, I used my Telecaster for years. This was the only electric guitar that I owned, and I have used this guitar on countless recordings. And it was all that I needed. I never felt the need to purchase another guitar, electric guitar, and I got to know this one extremely well. Now, I never really subscribed to the notion that you needed to have more than one guitar, to tell you the truth, to do the kind of work that I did, that I do. I had, as I've said, done so many recordings, so much session and studio work and TV commercials. I never got one producer that hired me, one client to ever say to me, hey, why don't you have a 335? Why don't you have a Strat? Why don't you have, a Les Paul? They all basically were interested in the sound that I produced with the one guitar that I brought with me. Now, I may have been lucky in that regard. It certainly saved me a lot of money in purchases over the years. But I found that it just wasn't something that ever came up. Now, the only reason that I started swaying away from my Telecaster recently in the last year and a half or so, or 2 years, is because I was interested in getting a different sound. I wanted to, branch out sonically, and that was the main reason for me to start getting into Les Pauls and humbuckers, because really that was, something that I thought could take me in an interesting direction in terms of my professional work and my own private projects that I work on. Now, of course, I played other friends' guitars, that's how I got hip to vintage DiMarzios, because a good friend of mine used them in his guitar in Japan, and I just loved the sound that he got out of those suckers, and I always put that in my mind. And when I started to collect Les Pauls and Les Paul type guitars, of course, as you've seen, I really didn't have to get into a big search in terms of what kind of humbucker I wanted, thank God. Although I have purchased quite a different few pickups and been given a few. So I didn't have that particular chase. I didn't have to go down that rabbit hole. Now, of course, this train of thought started leading me down the road of, I have collected some very fine guitars, some very interesting ones, certainly. My 1993 Les Paul comes to mind. That is a guitar that literally was only produced in a 3-month period from January to March of 1993, and good luck finding one of those on the internet, because believe me, you're not. Once guys like me get a hand on them, we're not going to give them up. So certainly that's a guitar that's off of my for sale because it's an exceptional guitar. It's not one that I'm interested in putting up for sale because it is an exceptional guitar. I think of my guitar heroes, Clapton and Paul Kossoff. These are guys that pretty much well stuck with one particular instrument. Certainly in the case of Paul Kossoff, he was known for his exceptional Les Paul. Guitar that's still, actually 2 of them to be exact, but these are guitars that are still out there, that people are still writing numerous articles about. These were exceptional guitars, even amongst Les Pauls of that period, that 58, 59, 60 period. These guitars that Paul Kossoff had are exceptional even within those. So I've decided that maybe a better approach for me, a more minimalist approach, would be for me to sell off my guitar collection or trade, depending upon the situation, and try to obtain 1 or 2 more exceptional guitars, because I certainly think that my 84 Telecaster is an exceptional one. I've played a lot of Teles. I haven't found one yet that sounded like this one. So I got lucky with that one. There is a builder that I'm going to be visiting in April in Japan. They make their own guitars. Divisor is the name of the group, and within that group they have a master luthier there by the name of Momose-san, and he makes exceptional Les Paul type guitars. I won't say copies, but they are based upon 59 Les Pauls that I think that I'm probably going to be letting go of both of my gold tops and the 335 in order to fund purchasing one of his exceptional handmade guitars. And this approach, puts me in the position where instead of having, a dozen or so, fine guitars, I think that you couldn't really argue, it's pretty subjective too, that the ones that I have already aren't fine guitars, but I would rather have 2 or 3 really exceptional ones. So I've got my Telecaster, I've got that 93 Les Paul Classic, which stands up to any R9 that they made then or since, in my opinion, my humble opinion. The Momose guitar, and I think at that point I'm going to call it quits. Now I know that this runs against the grain of most guys of trying to acquire, like the guy that I sold my Dan Electro to and his 14 guitars that he somehow hides from his wife. But I think for me, and looking at my needs, looking at my viewpoint, it's better to have, again, a few exceptional guitars than to have, a half dozen or a dozen or more of, less exceptional guitars. And again, that's subjective. I'd like to hear your opinion on this down in the comments section. Are you the type of guy that, most of the people who watch this, I'm sure you guys have more than one guitar, probably 20 or more in some extreme cases, certainly more than 3 or 4. Tell me what you think down in the comments section about this more minimalist approach that I've decided to adopt for myself. Your mileage may vary, as I always am fond to say. Yeah, tell me what you think about this, because really I I think that for going forward, moving ahead, that's a notion that appeals to me. It's not appealing to me to have, a breadth of guitars. I would rather have a depth of guitars, if you understand my meaning. So anyway, tell me what you think. Flame me if you want. Say, good luck with that, or I don't believe you that you're gonna sell your guitar collection. In any case, thank you for taking the time today to watch this show, and I'll see you guys on the upswing later. Bye.
Like the show? Well, show your support by subscribing and hitting the like button. See you later.